So when I think about the situation I was in, I was a global executive for an investment management firm. I was 20 years invested into my profession. I was really good at what I did, and I hated all the aspects of it. It was very soul-sucking, and it bleached the joy out of life for me. Naturally, I was an artist, and I was a creator more specifically. I like to write, I like to create things. And the parts of my job that were enjoyable was when it was the pioneering element of, hey, we need to develop this process, we need to develop this aspect or this test. And that was a lot of fun. And when all of that tapered away, it still didn't really address the underlying desire that I had. And so I was stuck in this career where I wasn't getting those kind of what I later identified as critical nutrients out of my existence. And while I could sit there and look at who I was serving in my family, that wasn't fulfilling enough because that was just giving. There was nothing that was filling my cup that I was doing. And there was little indicators of it along the way. I speak at conferences a lot, and that was always a very fulfilling experience for me, to be able to interact with people, to be able to move them, to be able to motivate them and educate them. That was very fulfilling. And so I knew kind of in that little heart of hearts that it was like, okay, there was something there that's resonating with my spirit and what I really am being called to do. And even at work, like in office land, there was a moment that really stood out to me where an executive came up to me after I gave a presentation, and he was new to the organization, and he said, "You really missed your calling." And while it was a great compliment to hear, there was a huge sting to it, which was he knows, like he saw the essence of me, which is I don't belong in this job. Like I'm really good at it, but it doesn't mean it's my calling. And that really was kind of putting it together. So for a little bit of time, probably several years, it was how do I kind of maintain stability in a career and start to do more of the things that are my calling? And I ran out of options, and I didn't really see opportunities of how I could kind of blend the two. It felt very binary. I had to do one or the other. And pursuing my passions or pursuing what I was called to do wasn't going to be able to provide for my family, or it wasn't going to satisfy those objective criteria. That is what the real value was, being stuck in my career. Is it like I could say, well, I'm stuck here, but I'm fulfilling these other obligations, and therefore that feels rewarding. So when it became binary, I felt stuck. There was no way for me to actually do what I really was called to do. And it wasn't until all of that basically hit the end of that path where I ran out of options of existing and being able to have a sustainable life that I had no other choice but to consider Path2 and to consider some sort of alternative way to invent a lifestyle, truly a lifestyle, that was going to fulfill all those aspects for me. And specifically, I needed to remove myself from being stuck. And instead of doing that in a very healthy and productive way, I just chose a very nuclear option and something that was very consistent with how I overcame obstacles before in the past, which was just use as much horsepower as possible, use as much willpower as possible, and overcome the obstacle. And that was not effective or helpful when I came to that conclusion on my initial path.